Hello, beautiful soul. My name is Yulia, and I'm the voice of the podcast Love to Heal. This podcast outlines my journey from atheism to Judaism, exploring spirituality from diverse perspectives. It is my hope that my journey will inspire others to embark on their own adventure of self-discovery and spiritual growth. Over the summer, I had the opportunity to attend a book signing at one of the local Chabad centers in Cleveland. Rabbi Levi Shmotkin from Brooklyn, New York, presented his book titled Letters for Life, Guidance for Emotional Wellness from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. I was very interested in the book and presentation, mainly because I had recently visited the Ohel, the resting place of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and I had learned so much about him that I was ecstatic to learn more about his life's work and how it continues to influence people's lives today. Rabbi Shmotkin opened his presentation with a personal account of why he began to research the Rebbe's letters in the first place. What happened was he had reached a point in life, having been a rabbi, when he felt down and heavy, and he just couldn't explain why he was feeling that way or what was missing from his spiritual growth. He then began to read the Rebbe's correspondence, and he felt very inspired. He felt an energy that was uplifting him and changing his viewpoint. He realized that it was precisely the Rebbe that had brought Torah ideas down to earth and presented them in an applicable way to any person's life. Shmotkin spoke on various topics. He presented examples from individuals that he himself interviewed that actually had received letters from the Rebbe. And Shmotkin spent years reading and researching the Rebbe's correspondence and archives. And the common denominator that he identified in all those letters was the Rebbe's advice and teachings on coping with the inevitable challenges that threaten our peace of mind. Shmotkin especially told us stories that he had read in all these letters, stories of lonely teenagers, elderly seniors, and Holocaust survivors who wrote letters to the Rebbe seeking direction in life. Now, the Rebbe, he responded personally to each letter. And like I said, there were thousands of them. And he would lovingly advise each individual how to attain inner health and harmony and wholeness. The Rebbe, in turn, he drew from the 3,000 years of Jewish wisdom that has never been more relevant to today's world. It seems that nowadays, everyone around is suffering from either anxiety, too much stress, mental issues, you name it. My 17-year-old stepdaughter tells me of dozens of friends and classmates that are on medication for all sorts of disorders like depression and anorexia, while others are regularly seeing therapists. I myself teach at a university, and every semester I have more and more students with accommodations, many of which are tied to mental and emotional issues. You would think that with so many technological advances that are supposed to make life easier, we would feel better, right? Well, it turns out that the farther away we get from nature and God, the worse we suffer. In addition, the more freedom we have, the more difficulties we're presented with, and the more spiritual searching we must do. Rabbi Shmotkin spoke profusely about spiritual rootedness, which is imperative for emotional stability, And this resonated greatly with me because until I became spiritually rooted, I suffered immensely from anxiety. And I spent years searching for truth, for belonging, for my identity, for anything that would provide me stability. And with that, a sense of hope. And this is why I absolutely loved the Rebbe's overarching message that we can travel far when we have a home to come back to. Our metaphorical branches can grow long and reach far if our roots are strong. The thing is that our soul needs a home, an anchor that will hold and keep us from falling or from falling entirely. Because, yes, sometimes we fall, difficulties happen, but these winds of life will never overthrow us completely if we're well rooted. And I have to mention that this is especially true for Jews. Jews are the most resilient nation in history. And it is exactly due to our roots, our heritage, our connection to God that we continue to thrive. The best gift that we can give a child is rootedness, an identity. A condition of rootedness is a peace of mind, an inner security. This is something I was never given as a child. And it is now my responsibility as a parent to give it to my children because I don't want them to experience what it's like to be a lost soul. I want my kids to know that their soul has a home, a very well-built, beautiful 3,000-year-old home that they can come back to anytime. I want them to know that God loves them, that God is there for them always, that the Torah will provide all necessary answers and guidance throughout their whole life. There is no need to search. You see, prior to giving my soul a home, prior to finding Judaism, I was one of those lost souls. I literally wandered through life looking for an identity for myself, trying out different faiths and beliefs, only to realize that they did not answer all of my questions, nor did they make me feel at home. I bounced from relationship to relationship, not being able to find a partner for life because I was unsure of my own values. I had so much freedom that I didn't know what to do with it. I traveled the world over in search of meaning, but I always came back empty-handed. Because I didn't have rootedness, I was anxious. I couldn't find peace within myself. I constantly felt the need to do something, to see someone, to get away. In simple terms, I wandered through life with no map, no GPS, and therefore I kept getting lost. Now that I have the most amazing GPS ever, aka the Torah, that provides very precise directions and instructions for life, now I'm no longer lost. And here's the kicker. Now that I have directions, I don't even have the need to constantly leave, to be on the road, to be escaping the everyday, the mundane. On the contrary, I feel so safe, so happy and peaceful in my home and in myself that there's nothing to escape from. I love my home now that I've invited God to live with me. I love my marriage now that God is part of it. And I love watching my children grow into godly beings, into individuals that are learning to see God in everything, that are learning to live with their souls first and bodies second. The Torah provides instructions for living healthy lives, for staying emotionally and mentally strong. And Rabbi Shmotkin, he gave us some suggestions based on this timeless wisdom. For example, he suggested that we take at least half an hour each week to create rootedness by, for example, studying the Torah, by doing a mitzvah, by praying. He also suggested that we light Shabbat candles without stress. After all, Shabbat is a gift from God. It's a day of rest, a day of peace and quietude. I must admit, it's not easy for me to disconnect on Shabbat and set the table worry-free, especially if we're having guests over that evening. But this is where I owe it to my husband, who helps me stay calm, helps me cook, and reassures me that we're doing our best and there's no need to stress. Then I also heard a metaphor that Rabbi Shmotkin used that I really enjoyed, and it made a lot of sense to me. So this metaphor is of the flies on a cow. Okay, so picture that, and realize that the flies are not part of the cow. They land on her, but all she has to do is shake them off. And similarly with people, the setbacks, the unexpected downfalls, things that don't go as planned, they're not part of us. They don't define us. We just need to learn to shake them off. And guess what? With God, it's much easier to achieve that. When we're anxious or sad, Shmotkin recommended that we read Psalm 23, or better yet, that we learn it by heart. It's not very long. And interestingly enough, when he was talking about that, I remembered that I had recently bookmarked that psalm for myself. I have it on my phone, always available and ready for me to read. And so I would read it every time that I felt stressed out or just simply worried, not at peace inside. And as he was speaking about this psalm, I also realized that I had stopped reading it because I think after having read it several days in a row, it did provide me peace, and I must have stopped reading it. So now that he reminded me about it, I think it's time to go back and just make it a habit. Maybe I can memorize it, and every time throughout the day or throughout the week, when I don't feel myself 100%, or I feel like there's too much on my plate, or I'm feeling down for whatever reason, I can just recite it, and it will make me feel better. In regards to Shmotkin's book, I plan to read it. It's definitely on my list. The Chabad where we went for this presentation, they have a little library, and they bought his book. So I think when I'm done reading all the other books that I have on my list, I will definitely go to this Chabad and check this book out from their little library. So I'm looking forward to reading it. But I think there's no doubt that this book has a lot of value to all people. And without having read it, I'm going to recommend it because you can't go wrong when it comes to the Rebbe. Honestly, you can't. So you will find the title of the book and the author's name in the show notes. I hope you will consider reading it, and also I hope you share this episode to inspire others to find emotional wellness. And I would like to leave you today with the aforementioned Psalm 23. A little bit about the psalm. It begins with the words Mizmor LeDavid, which means a song of David. And this is arguably the most famous of all the psalms. In it, King David sings of God's protection. He refers to him as a shepherd. David describes how his trust in God never falters, and how even as he walks through the valley of the shadow of death, God shields him from harm, vanquishes his enemies, and enthrones him in the house of God. The psalm is a timeless testament to the rock-solid faith of the Jewish people in knowing that God is always with us, protecting us and guiding our path. So enjoy, and until next time. A Song of David. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even as I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You set a table before me in the presence of my adversaries. You anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord for length of days.